Let's please sit in a meditation posture and close the eyes. Put our attention on the silence that is always there deep in the mind. Connect with that silence and become the silence. Become the silent witness. You are the silent witness. Now listen to the Yoga Vasishta. Book 4, Chapter 53, continuing with verse 10. This city is composed of 14 worlds, containing all their peoples, together with change of their hills and forests, and those of gardens and groves. It is furnished with the 2 lights of the sun and moon, and adorned with many mountains for human sport. Here are pearly rivers, flow in their winding courses and bear their swelling waves and rippling waves, shining like chains of pearls under sunbeams and moonlight. The 7 oceans appear like so many lakes of bright waters, and shining with their undersea fires, they resemble the lotus beds and mines of gems beneath the blue sky. It is a distinguished place where gods, men, and savages make their commerce with commodities, leading either to heaven above or to hell below. The self-willed king, the mind, has employed many persons to act their several parts before him for his pleasure. Some are placed high above this stage and act as gods and deities. Others are set in lower pits of this earth and infernal regions to act their miserable parts as men and Naga serpents. Their bodies are made of clay, and their framework is made of white bones. Their plastering is the flesh under the skin, like an air-powered machine. Some of these bodies have to act their part for a long while, while others make their exits in a short time. Some are covered with caps of black hair, and others with white and gray on their heads. All these bodies are furnished with 9 crevices, including the 2 ear holes, 2 sockets of the eyes, and 2 nostrils with the opening of the mouth, which are continually employed in inhaling and exhaling cold and hot air by their breathing. The ear holes, nostrils, and palate serve as windows to the abode of the body. The hands and feet are gateways, and the 5 inner organs are the lights of these homes. Then the mind creates its own will, the delusion of egoism, which, like a yaksha demon, takes possession of the whole body, but flies before the light of knowledge. The mind, accompanied by this delusive demon, takes great pleasure in diverting itself with unrealities. Egoism resides in the body like a rat in a barn or a snake in hollow ground. Upon advance of the sunlight of reason, ego falls down like a dewdrop from the blade of grass. It rises and falls like the flame of a lamp in the home of the body. With all its desires, it is as noisy as the sea with its ceaseless wave. The mind constructs a new home for its future home by virtue of its interminable desires in its present house, and which are expected to be realized and enjoyed in its future state. But no sooner does it cease to foster its desires than it ceases to exist and loses itself in that state of supreme bliss of which there can be no end. But it is born and reborn by its repeated desires, just as a child sees a ghost by its constant fear of it. Ego spreads the view of this miserable world before him. Absence of self-knowledge blocks the sight of all objects from view, like a veil of thick darkness that hides all things from sight. In this way, one's own attempt exposes himself to the miseries of the world. Then he wails at his fate, like a foolish monkey that brought on his own destruction by pulling out the peg from the chink in the timber. The mind remains in eager expectation of the enjoyment of its desired objects, like a stag standing with its mouth lifted, waiting for a drop of honey to fall from a honeycomb hanging on high. The wistful mind now pursues its desired objects, then forsakes them in disgust. Now it longs for joy, then it grows sulky at its failure like a fretful child. Now try diligently, my boy, to extricate your mind from all outward objects and fix your attention to the inner object of this meditation. This willful mind takes at its pleasure its good, bad, and moderate or sober forms, known under the names of sattva, rajas, and tamas. The bad or weakened form of the mind delights in worldliness, and by debasing itself with all its greedy desires, reduces itself to the state of worms and insects in future births. The good disposition of the mind is inclined towards virtuous deeds and the acquisition of knowledge. By these means, the mind advances, both to its solitude and self-enjoyment. In its form of moderation, the mind observes the rules and laws of society and conducts itself in the world in the company of friends and members of the family. After renunciation of all these forms, sattva, rajas, and tamas, and abdication of egoism and desires, it reaches to the state of the silent witness, absolute supreme being. Therefore, shun the sight of what can be seen and repress your fleeting mind by your sober intellect. Diminish your desires for all internal as well as external goods, For though you may practice your austerities for 1,000 years and crush your body by falling from a precipice upon stone, and although you burn your body alive in a flaming fire, or plunge yourself into the undersea fire, or if you fall in a deep pit and dark pit as well as, or rush upon the edge of a drawn and sharp sword, or if you have Brahma himself, or even Shiva for your teacher, or get a very kind and tender-hearted ascetic for your religious guide, or whether you are situated in heaven or on earth or in the hell regions of the Patala below, you have no way of liberation except by balancing your individual karmic traces. This is the only way of keeping your desires under control. Now exert your courage and dominate your irresistible violent desires and passions, which will secure your pure and transcendental joy of peace and holiness. Turn the mind inward in the practice of meditation and balance all individual karmic traces. All things are linked together under the bondage of desire. This bondage of desire is composed of the web of karmic traces. This bond can be broken asunder, and when done, makes desired objects vanish into nothing. The real is unreal, and the unreal is real. Just as the mind may make it appear to be. All reality and unreality consists of our conception of them, and in nothing else. As the mind conceives a thing to be, so it perceives the same in actuality. Therefore, if you want to know the truth and have no conception of anything, act as the world goes, without liking or disliking anything. Remain always connected and established as the silent witness. This will vanquish all desires. Thus, desires being at an end, consciousness will become permanently established in that unfathomable region of the silent witness, beyond the knowledge of the mind. The mind having sprung from the silent witness in the form of sattva, afterwards is inclined toward the unrealities of the world, and surely alienates itself from the silent witness and exposes itself to all sorts of misery. we are born to the doom of death. But let us not die to be reborn to the miseries of life and death again. It is for the wise and learned to take themselves to that state which is free from these pains. First, establish yourself as the silent witness. Learn the truth and attain the true knowledge of your soul. Then you will spontaneously abandon all your desires and dislikes of the world. Being thus prepared with a dead-like unconsciousness of your internal feeling, you will be able to come to the knowledge of the silent witness, that transcendental state which is full of perfect bliss and blessedness. Chapter 54. Dasura explains, desires vanish when you give them no thought. The son asked, what is this desire, Father? How is it produced and grown? How is it destroyed at last? And Dasura replied, desire or will is situated in the mind, which is the mental part of the one eternal, universal, and spiritual substance of God. Desire gets the form of a monad from a formless unit. Then, by its gradual expansion, extends over the whole mind and fills it like a flimsy cloud soon covers the sky. Remaining in divine consciousness, the mind thinks of what can be thought, as if it were distinct from itself. Its longing after them is called its desire, which springs from it like a germ from its seed. Desire is produced by desiring something, and it increases itself both in size and quantity only for our trouble and not for any good or happiness at all. This means when we put our attention on the karmic traces, then we explore them and we experience them and we become active at their behest. It simply causes them to wake up and become more and more prevalent. Unless we are in the process of balancing the karmic traces at all times. What good is it to invigorate the karmic traces and not balance them? It's a disaster. It leads the individual into the dark pit of samsara. The accumulation of our desires forms the world, just as the accumulation of waters makes the ocean. You have no trouble without your desire. Being free of desire, you are free from the miseries of the world. It is by mere chance that we meet the objects of our desire. And an act of unavoidable chance makes us liable to lose them. They appear before us as secondary lights in the sky, then fly away like a mirage, vanishes from view. As a man who has jaundice from eating a certain fruit sees everything as yellow with his jaundiced eye, so the desire in the heart of man pictures the unreal as the reality before him. Know this truth, that you are an unreality yourself, and you must become an unreality afterward. He who has learned to believe in his own existence and that of all others, and who knows the vanity of his joy and grief, is not troubled by the gain or loss of anything. Knowing yourself as nothing, why do you think of your birth and your pleasures here? You are deluded in vain by the vanity of your desire. Do not entertain your desires or think of anything that is nothing. By living in this manner, you may be wise and happy. Try to relinquish your desires, and you will evade all difficulties. Cease to think of anything, and your desire for it will disappear of itself. This is spontaneously accomplished and easy by identifying with the silent witness. The silent witness is so full of bliss, so full of joy, that all desires vanish. If any desire might arise, it is quickly extinguished by the bliss of the silent witness. It is literally balanced to never arise again. Even the crushing of a flower requires some effort, but it requires no effort to destroy your desire. It vanishes of itself when you lack it thought. Put all your attention on the silent witness. You are the silent witness. Your desires are a mere trifle, and melt quickly as snow melts on a hot surface. You have to open the palm of your hand to get a hold of a flower. but you have nothing to do to destroy your frail and false desire. Only establish yourself as the silent witness. He who wants to destroy his desire can do it in an instant by being established as the silent witness, and thereby forgetting the thought of his desired object. Now let us remain established as a silent witness and connect with the wonderful Trimana Sanyama procedure on the esoteric Maha Mantra, and balance all karmic traces that have been activated and enlivened by today's reading.
Jai Gurudev.